Hello everyone, and welcome to today's story. James nearly found Tu Diep, but not in the forest where their past was written in shadow and silence. After many days apart, fate had drawn them together again, but something had shifted. Tu Diep stood on the old wooden bridge where their story once began, beneath a sky ablaze with orange light. The scent of wet earth lingered, and the distant notes of a bamboo flute drifted like ghosts through the wind. Her heart pounded, not because of the breeze, but because James was coming. He had once left without warning, leaving behind only a cryptic message. "Trust me, I'll come back when it's safe." For weeks, Tu Diep had cried herself to sleep. Rumors filled the void. Was he in danger? Had he left the country? No one knew, neither did she. And then came the night that changed everything. A storm unlike any other, headlights slicing through rain as she ran, barefoot and desperate, until a strong arm pulled her to safety. A man in uniform, calm, steady, Officer Ann. He didn't ask questions, he simply stayed. Day by day, his presence became her anchor. The warmth of ginger tea, the quiet protection, the gentleness she hadn't known she needed. And now, the past had returned. With eyes like fire, standing across the bridge, James stepped closer, voice trembling as he called her name, uncertain if she would even reply. Tu Diep clutched the edge of her coat, torn between memory and reality. She remembered James's laughter, his touch, the life they once dreamed. But she also remembered Anne, how he listened, how he stayed when everything else fell apart. James said he had missed her every day, that he did what he had to do to protect them. "I'm here now, if you'll still have me," he said. Her eyes welled. "I waited," she whispered, "but things changed." She looked down at the bracelet Anne had given her, the night he pulled her from darkness. Love, in that moment, wasn't a grand promise. It was a question. A fragile silence stretched between them. Tu Diep remembered how, just days ago, she had broken down in the market at the mention of James's name, and Anne, without being called, had appeared like always. He walked her home, carried her burdens, never asked for more. She looked at James. "When you left," she said, "I didn't know if you were alive. I didn't know if you loved me enough to come back. I was drowning." James stepped forward, regret clouding his gaze. "I had no choice," he said. But she shook her head gently. Sometimes, love isn't hiding in the shadows. It's standing beside someone, even when it's dangerous. The man she once knew now stood before her, haunted and real. And while part of her still believed him, another part, quieter, stronger, now beat for someone who never promised the world. He simply stayed. He looked down, ashamed. The confident CEO she once knew now stood before her, haunted, stripped of armor. "I never stopped loving you," he whispered. And her heart twisted, not because she didn't believe him, but because she did. Just not with the same heart she once had. That part of her, fragile and furious, had been slowly replaced by something gentler, sturdier. She remembered Anne that evening, how he simply sat outside her gate with a thermos of tea. No questions, no demands. "Did you see him?" he asked softly. She nodded. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she took the cup from his hand, warm against her trembling fingers. No words, just silence and safety. She looked into Anne's eyes, so unlike James's fire. Anne didn't ignite, he anchored. And suddenly, she found herself wondering, what lasts longer? Flames that burn bright, or roots that quietly hold you through every storm? That night, sleep refused to come. The wind brushed through the bamboo like voices from the past. She opened the drawer beside her bed. Inside, The silver chain with the jade leaf James once gave her shimmered faintly under the lamp. She remembered his promises in the rain and how he held her like the world was ending. But she also remembered Anne, how he waited outside during the thunderstorm just because she was too scared to be alone. And then, the next morning, came the knock at her gate. James, with lilies in hand, eyes full of resolve. "If there's even a part of you that still believes in us, I'll wait," he said. Before she could answer, Anne appeared with eggs for her market stall. The two men faced each other, unflinching, and Tu Diep stood frozen, basket against her chest, caught between the man who once swept her into a dream and the man who had quietly helped her survive the nightmare. When James asked if there was still a place for him, Anne simply said, "I'll be at peace as long as you are." And in that stillness, something inside her began to shift. Later, when Anne returned in the rain to hand her a document, proof that the fire was arson, and maybe someone close to James was behind it, Tu Diep realized this wasn't just a love story, it was a reckoning. Between feeling and truth, between what once was and what could be, between chaos and calm. The question was no longer, who do I love, but who helps me feel safe enough to love again? And in her heart, the answer had begun to form, not with thunder, but with dawn. The rain hadn't stopped by the next evening. It whispered against the roof, danced across the leaves, and wrapped the house in a kind of hush that made even memories speak louder. Tu Diep sat by the window, arms folded around herself, watching drops chase one another down the glass like timelines diverging. Her heart was still a battlefield of voices, James's urgency, Anne's quiet concern, and her own, unsure and splintered. Just as she turned away, a knock echoed at the door. Standing there, soaked through, was Anne. "You'll catch cold," she said, startled by the worry in her voice. "I had to give you this," he replied, holding out a folded paper. The ink had smudged at the edges, but the words were clear enough. The fire was no accident. It had been set. Her hands trembled as she read. Who would do this? Her voice cracked. Anne hesitated, then said with measured calm, "We believe it may be someone close to James. Not him, but perhaps someone who didn't want you to be with him." The air between them thickened, not with accusation, but with truth. Tu Diep shook her head. "No, James wouldn't." "I'm not asking you to stop caring," Anne said gently. "I'm just asking you to look at everything, not just how you feel. You deserve all the truth, not just the beautiful parts." She stood in silence long after Anne left, the paper still clutched to her chest like a warning written in ink and heartbreak. And that night, under the starlit hush of countryside stillness, she sat with her old journal. 2 hearts, 1 past, 1 present. But where is my future? Her pen paused, the ink catching at the edge of the page, a single tear smudging the word future. She closed the book slowly, but her heart remained open, no longer torn, but waiting. Because love, she realized, isn't just about who makes your pulse race or who says the right things. It's about who stays, even when staying means waiting in the rain with nothing but a thermos and time. Love is who holds your silence with care, who protects you without fanfare. And maybe, just maybe, real love isn't about choosing between 2 men. It's about finally choosing yourself. And in that choice, finding the one who lets you grow, not just love. Although the rain had stopped, her heart remained drenched in uncertainty. The next morning, Tu Diep headed to the market as usual. Same woven basket, same muddy path along the canal, yet each step felt heavier than the last. The weight wasn't in her hands, it was in her chest. The familiar vendors greeted her with gentle smiles, but she only nodded faintly, her thoughts elsewhere. Inside her mind, echoes of unfinished words clashed with unspoken truths. Two pairs of eyes still lingered in her memory: James's desperate fire, Anne's steady calm, and now, layered on top of everything, the revelation from last night. Someone had wanted her gone. This wasn't fate. This was someone's intention. And though Anne insisted it wasn't James, something in her heart had begun to crack. When she returned home, Tu Diep noticed the gate was ajar. A single sheet of paper had been taped to the center of her front door. The message read, "Don't trust anyone, not even the one you think saved you." No signature, no handwriting she recognized. Just a cold, naked threat. Her fingers trembled. She pulled out her phone, hesitating for a moment. Then, she began to dial Anne's number. Tu Diep pulled out her phone, thumb trembling over Anne's name, but just as she hovered above the call icon, the screen lit up, James. Her breath caught. Of all the moments, it had to be now. The phone rang again, then fell silent. A message appeared. "I need to talk to you, alone. Please, trust me one last time." Her eyes shifted to the mysterious note on her door. "Don't trust anyone, not even the one you think saved you." Who had left it? Who knew what churned inside her? Without calling Anne, she slid the note into her pocket and followed the path her feet knew by heart. The old bridge where everything began, where James had once promised forever. He was already there, staring into the river as if it might wash away their sins. "Thank you for coming," he said, voice hushed. Tu Diep crossed her arms. "Why am I here, James?" He handed her a crumpled envelope. "Someone close to me betrayed us. It wasn't me, Tu Diep, but someone wanted to hurt you to get to me. I think it was John." His voice cracked, and his eyes, those fire-lit eyes, looked desperate. "I left to protect you, but maybe all I did was leave you vulnerable." Her voice barely a whisper, she asked, "And Anne?" James hesitated. "He's clever. Too clever. I don't think he'd hurt you, but I don't think he's told you everything either." Her mind spun like a coin in the air, unsure where it would land. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "I want to fix this, not to reclaim the past, but to build something new." She took a step back. "You speak like I'm still yours." "I know I'm not," he said softly, "but I had to try." Then, from behind her, a voice like steady ground, "Anne. She's not something to win back, James." He stood a few paces away, unreadable. Maybe I didn't tell her everything, but I never tried to be her savior. I just waited until she was ready. Tu Diep's heart clenched. "This isn't your war," she said quietly. "Not anymore. It's mine." She looked at them. Two men, two reflections of the road she'd walked. And then, without a word, she turned and walked away. That night, beneath the soft patter of rain, she sat by her window and watched the world blur. The note in her pocket burned. The voice of her own heart, quiet but present. In her journal, she wrote, "Some loves strike like storms, some stay like moonlight. But in the end, I choose neither. I choose peace." In the days that followed, James left the city. Anne still came by, but less often, never expecting anything. And one morning, Tu Diep smiled. Not because of James, not because of Anne, but because for the first time, she had chosen herself.